You can tell by the title, and this is a late night video. We got some things to talk about. What is up, Fin fans? I'm recording this at midnight. Should be getting ready for tomorrow's game, heading to the MetLife takeover. It's going to be a fun game. A lot to talk about. I'm not talking about that, but it's going to be a lot, and hopefully a lot to happen, and hopefully we win the game, go to 4-1. We all know about that stuff. I already talked about it yesterday. But the NFL and the NFLPA have released their findings in the review of Tua's concussion check and protocol and all that stuff. So Barry Jackson came out with this fantastic article. We're going to go over it. We're going to talk about what the findings were, all that stuff. In a nutshell, essentially, they found that the Dolphins did not go against concussion protocol. They also found that Tua did not have a concussion after the Bills incident where he got pushed by whoever his name is. My brain's not working again. It's midnight. Milano. And they said that the doctor, who's a head doctor, a neurologist, was looking at head symptoms, was looking at his brain, was looking at all the neurological symptoms, not looking at his back, not looking at the other things that made him go weak in the legs. So we're going to go over this. I'm going to read essentially Barry Jackson's article here talking about this, and I'll give you my thoughts and opinions on it. So he says, in a joint statement released on Saturday, the NFL-NFLPA Association said that the team's physician and unaffiliated neurotrauma consultant, who got fired, involved in Dolphins quarterback Tua Tagovailoa's concussion check on September 25th, followed the league's step-by-step protocols. But the outcome in this case was not what was intended when the protocol was drafted. So essentially, they went by their protocol, but now all of a sudden they're like, but, trying to backtrack, trying to save face. He said the two sides also announced an alteration of the concussion protocol, adding a new term, ataxia, to the list of no-go symptoms that bar players suspected of concussion from re-entering the game. This change takes effect starting with the remainder of the Week 5 games. If a player is diagnosed with ataxia, abnormal or balance/stability, motor condition, or dysfunctional speech caused by neurological issue, he is prohibited from re-entering the game. Ataxia replaces the gross motor inability, no-go symptoms. A player can return to a game if the team physician and a consultant conclude that the instability was not result of the neurological issue. And essentially, they found that out about Tua, but again, hopefully Barry gets to that. I haven't read this article yet. In a virtual news conference after the release of the statement, Dr. Alan Sills, the NFL chief medical officer, said that the new ataxia no-go symptom would have kept Tua out of the remainder of the game against Buffalo Bills on September 25th, and Tua would have been diagnosed with concussion. Sills said that the gross motor inability term allowed the physician and consultant to use their judgment, for example, factoring in the player's injury history, to determine whether the instability was caused by neurological issues under the new ataxia term, and any instability is deemed to be because of a brain injury. So essentially, they're saying the new ataxia cause would have kept him out of the game to come back in, because they assume that has to do with the brain. Stills referenced blood and saliva tests that could better diagnose concussion, but said that for now the league would err on the side of caution. We may mislabel some situations, but I think we and the Players Association have agreed that we're willing to be conservative in that situation. The review found that Tua sustained and reported back and ankle injuries earlier during the Bills game. Tua told the medical staff that he aggravated his back injury after he was shoved back by linebacker Matt Milano and hit his head on the ground. According to the review, the play in which he was suspected of sustaining a concussion, Tua grabbed his helmet and stumbled after getting up, adding more suspicion that he may have sustained a head injury. Everyone and their mother, when they saw him fall and stumble like that, thought he has a concussion. Tua was examined for a head injury and cleared to return in the second half of the game. Tua didn't report or exhibit any signs or symptoms of concussion during his examination in the locker room. During the remainder of the game or throughout the following week, the review found. So essentially, in the locker room, after the game and for the next 4 days, Tua did not exhibit any signs or symptoms of concussion. So he didn't show any signs of concussion. When asked whether under the new protocol Tua would have been able to play 4 days later against the Cincinnati Bengals, Sill said there are no infinite timetables for return after concussion diagnosis, but it would have been extremely unlikely. He said the median time for a player after concussion is 9 days, and Tua would have had to clear the 5-step process to return to the field. So essentially, he's saying with the new ataxia rule, essentially the new ataxia rule is saying if you stumble, regardless of what it is, you're out. That shows a sign of concussion, you're out. But again, they're saying here, Tua didn't report or exhibit any signs of symptoms of concussion during his examination in the locker room during the remainder of the game or throughout the following week. The team physician and consultant did not examine Tua's back during his concussion examination, according to the review, instead relying on earlier examination by other members of the medical staff. Back pain can be a symptom of concussion. The league and NFLPA's announcement brings to an end a nearly 2-week review into Tua's concussion check, one that came under increased scrutiny after Tua sustained a concussion was carted off the field against the Bengals 4 days later after hitting his head against the Bills. The NFLPA initiated the investigation shortly after the Bills game. Hours before the league and players union statement, NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell spoke to fans. A fan forum. No, I don't care about that. On multiple occasions, Dolphins head coach Mike McDaniel defended the decision to play Tua, saying he was cleared by multiple medical professionals, including the unaffiliated UNC. The consultant involved in Tua's concussion check during the Bills game was fired by the NFLPA, a source told the Miami Herald, after the union found the person made multiple mistakes in the evaluation. According to NFL Network, the union exercised its right to fire the consultant and cited several reasons, including failure to understand his role and hostility during the investigation. So after the union found out, sources told the Miami Herald this guy was fired because the person found multiple mistakes in the evaluation. But according to the NFL Network, the union exercised it because failure to understand his role and hostility during the investigation. So one person saying because he made a lot of mistakes, and then another person saying it's because he was extremely hostile and didn't understand his role during the investigation. Sills and Jeff Miller, the NFL executive vice president of communications, said the league disagreed with the union's decision to fire the consultant. It's like one thing after another. The notion that a consultant could be fired at a time when the protocol was followed is a strike. It strikes us as something the league wouldn't do. Who has been ruled out for week 5. So they're essentially saying the notion that a consultant could be fired at a time when the protocol was followed, it strikes us as something the league wouldn't do, which is hilarious to me. Absolutely hilarious that they fired him even though he followed the league's protocol, and none of this was found. Other things Pete Jackson said, to investigation complete, NFL and union say while the investigation determined that the team, medical staff, and unaffiliated medical professionals followed the steps of the protocol as written, the NFL and the NFLPA agreed the outcome in this case is not what was intended when the protocol was drafted. Of course. Thus, the protocol changed. Mr. Tagovailoa did not report any or exhibit any signs of symptoms of concussion during the locker room, like I said. But there was another one that Peter Jackson said that I thought was really notable. This also notable. The medical staff involved determined the gross motor instability, the GMI, suffered by Mr. Tagovailoa was not neurologically caused. I'm going to pop this up so you guys can see what I'm looking at right now. This is what I'm looking at right now. This is also notable. The medical staff involved, again, this is the medical staff that is involved in the investigation, determined that the gross motor instability, the GMI, suffered by Mr. Tagovailoa was not neurologically caused. They concluded the player's back injury was the cause of his observed instability. However, the team physician and the UNC did not conduct an examination of Mr. Tagovailoa's back during the concussion examination, but instead relied on the earlier examination conducted by other members of the medical staff. So again, right here, it wasn't caused by the concussion. So they're essentially saying he didn't have a concussion. It was his back. They didn't check his back. And then the second on Thursday, it was a concussion. So can we for once and for all move past this? Everyone came out and made Mike McDaniel, like Rex Ryan and ESPN and all these guys came out and made Mike McDaniel be a monster. Why would you let him go out back on the field? Why would you do this? So many people were like, he should retire. 2 concussions back to back. He's horrible, blah, blah, blah. When the investigation, more doctors and all this stuff said the Sunday's game, his gross motor instability was suffered because, and it was not neurological caused. But then Thursday, that was a concussion, right? Obviously, they added a new clause and a new symptoms to the concussion protocol, which they should have, because D. Higgins shouldn't have played Thursday. There's so many guys that, J.J. Watt shouldn't have played after having his cardiac problem. Like, there's so many different players that shouldn't have played at so quick. I don't think Tua should have played Thursday, and I didn't think it was a concussion after he said his back injury because of his inability to turn and make the throws, and he was still playing really good before the concussion happened. But what this finding shows is that the Dolphins did nothing wrong. The UNC did nothing wrong. Even the head medical professional, Sills, said that the UNC shouldn't have been fired if he followed concussion protocol. And again, he didn't get fired for following concussion protocol. One source said he did. The other source said he did because of his hostility during the investigation. But overall, the medical staff involved determined that gross motor instability suffered by Mr. Tagovailoa was not neurologically caused. They concluded the player's back injury was the cause of his observed instability. So again, everybody, here you go. He did not have a concussion on Sunday. We're going to move past it. He had a concussion Thursday. He's in concussion protocol. Hopefully he gets better. Hopefully he decides whether is right for him and his family. But he did not have a concussion on Sunday. There is no, yeah, he did. They're just covering it up. No. Here's the facts hitting you in the face. Because I have people on Twitter still saying he had a concussion. He had a concussion. I don't care how many doctors said he didn't have a concussion. I know what I know, and he has a concussion because I know more than the doctors. The medical staff involved determined the gross motor instability suffered by Mr. Tagovailoa was not neurologically caused. They concluded the player's back injury was the cause of his observed instability. We'll leave it at that. Just want to give you guys an update, let you guys know the Dolphins did nothing wrong. They won't be punished, yada, yada, bing, bong, bing. They added the new clause into the concussion protocol. Essentially, you stumble, kind of like the running back for the Colts did on Thursday, you're out. It doesn't matter if you don't show signs of symptoms or anything like that. You stumble like that after taking a hit to the head, you're out, and you're in concussion protocol from now on, which I agree. I agree 100%. But again, Tua did not have a concussion on Sunday. He had a concussion on Thursday. Other than that, I'll see you guys tomorrow night after the game when I do my preview, and then later that night, either that night or Monday, I'll do the vlog. And everyone going to the game, we'll see you at L4 parking lot in the MetLife Takeover. But like usual, stay classy. Fence up.